Daily trading recap for Monday, the 10th of January, 2022. Nice little day on the P&L side, a little green day after one real trade. I had one day trade left for the margin shorting account, so used that up like right away in the pre-market today and went a lot, pretty heavy on the paper side, just shorting, kind of blanket shorting a lot, just for educational, experimental sake, for a lot of second day plays, fourth day plays. Lots of learning lessons to go off from, mainly on, I think after looking back on it today, I think there was just a lot of knowledge gained from the covering side of it, which I feel is almost the easier aspect of it when I'm in the trade, of just, that's the greatest point of view to be from, is like, oh, when do I want to take my money, right? So I think I did get a lot of reps in that field today, but I think the next step, or if I do try to do these little blanket strategy again, if I don't have a trade on the day, or I'm just looking to do something like kind of overemphasizing, just looking at a bunch of charts compared to when I would normally just try to be focusing on one chart instead, like today was, hey, for experimentation, let's just try and throw a bunch of charts out there, try to manage a lot of positions at the same time. So I think as a result of that, just not really in my intention, it became a lot of, just kind of blanket entering everything at once and then scaling out when I saw fit best for those individual charts. So I think potentially going forward, if I want to do that same strategy again the next few days, the next few weeks, maybe even, of it becomes then the lesson of, okay, I want to identify these different tickers, but then it becomes, okay, when do I feel is the best point of entry to starting on these trades, whether that is pre-market or market hours. Use that as the next little stepping stone or reps practicing point today. SPY itself having a little bit of red dumpiness, not only on the gap down over the weekend, but also in the morning session, dropping all the way below 457. Now peeling back up in the afternoon here into the close, looking pretty nice. On the daily, it's still in this hard pullback off of that all-time high slap, so we'll see if it wants to hold this range-ish, anywhere from 460 to 470-ish, or if it gets another little pullback again to 450 range here, starts another downtrend. Interesting to watch what happens from there, just as an overall market sentiment. As reference for me, more housekeeping, daily market volume. As of 13 minutes after close here, NASDAQ $300 billion volume, NYSE $370 billion volume on the day. OTC markets $2.9 billion volume. So, it says reference again of my one real trade, nice little winner. We'll get to that one first, and then my paper ones, I had 5 tickers that I was playing. One nice, decent winner on MRIN, 2 decent little plays on DWAC and MYNZ. They were just kind of decent. And then, those two ended up being like kind of break even or cuts on LIXT and HGSH. So we'll get into those right now. Let's start it off with a ALLO. Chartreuse. Sin quiero. Beautiful freaking morning dump chart. And of course, and I'm going to mention VERU after this one as well, the same thing that I missed, that I didn't get to be a part of, but dropping hard below even that previous trading day's close and producing a heck of a lot of opportunity to the downside off of an initial morning spike. American Biotech, 75 million float, which equates to like over $1 billion for total float control, which is kind of my sweet spot of, hey, if I want to be trading these morning dumpers, immediate just V-shaped charts of going up and then reversing back down. Somehow, some way, these higher floaters love to work that way just a little bit better. This is something I've identified in just chart pattern basics, not in a hard data sense, but the feel on that way that, man, they do like to produce that little pattern. Their news catalyst today was an FDA removed their little clinical holds on their trials that they were having. Okay, great, whatever that means. Daily, love to see a little downtrending bleeding for longs there. Also want to mention 10-cent borrows through trade zero. Interesting little play. And for me, I'm pushing all those buttons. I'm seeing this thing pop up on the scanner, and it's just going, okay, is this the point? Do I want to short it after just a 1 minute pure green candle spike? It was a decent percentage move, closing from 13.5, going all the way to 17. Very nice, respectable percentage move wise to the upside to give me enough room to the downside to justify getting a short position and establishing any cover even before it potentially stops that move, as enough opportunity to get a profit and not just like trying to scalp 1% or 2% drop off after it fails to maintain VWAP at that point. But golly, I was, looking back at it, I was obviously covering a heck of a lot shorter than this chart allowed for. And even if I was holding this thing purely and beautifully not scaling out anything and waiting for a full 10% move and pulling 10% out from that initial entry when I did get a terrible freaking entry, 1510, when, could have been a little bit more on top of it, or a little bit anticipatory, kind of just nudging myself in there beforehand, which has gotten me in trouble in the past, but sometimes those play out to my benefit. Could have saved myself another 40, 50 cents on the entry price of profit, since it was pretty widespread trading, pretty wide from there. Started falling off and just covering shares as I thought the profit was there. And in the process of this trade, writing another little journal note down here with this specific morning dump strategy for me of, man, had this thing start to go against me, and okay, now my brain is at the point of, okay, I've got a 1510 entry. If it starts to spike to 16, I'm definitely not going to let it go to what would be my normal risk of high of day, as the point of where everybody else is going to be obviously covering there too, and where this strategy found its niche of covering at high of day and allowing it to just kind of haywire pinball, do whatever it wants to do, but knowing the full sentiment for this chart is death. Even the process of going through my mind of, okay, now understanding if I let this thing go to $16, that's going to be a $100 loss if I just cut it there, which I was well aware of, and understanding that, hey, if it does start to spike against there, I know I'm in the wrong. I know it could certainly do that. But now taking that process and mindset and really factoring that into this playbook trade itself of, okay, if I'm totally willing to do that, and now as I trade it, when it actually does work out well, man, the win rate on these ones has to be just so slam dunk high in order for me to be profitable if I'm going to trade it that way, versus if I either have to very much so readjust the risk profile that I'm trying to trade these things at, of cutting these things if it barely ticks above my entry point or that VWAP price. Cutting that then at 15.5, making that my risk cut level of hey, I either want to see this thing die off immediately, or I'm just cutting off of there and letting it drop for the rest of the entire day. Because, yeah, especially if I was to look at this exact same chart, which I would identify, and I graded it myself here too, of an A+ idea. If I'm allowing this type of chart to be the basis for what this playbook trade should be, and then saying, okay, I'm definitely not going to be risking high of day. That's just way too much of a risk profile, and I don't think there's enough win rate there for me to justify stomaching that type of loss on one trade and then trying to make that up in successive trades after this. But of allowing then, okay, to say, I'm looking for this specific pattern for this thing to break down. Now, how can I adjust where I'm taking profits or where I'm cutting it? And I think I can do that on both sides of saying, I think I can slim down that cut point, that risk level of I'm looking for the failure to maintain VWAP. If it does start to play any games and starts to fake me out, I'm not going to be bowing down and so slavish like I was to that day trade paradigm of, oh, these day trades are so valuable and I can't cut it because then I'll waste a day trade and won't be able to get back in, blah, blah, blah. That stupidity is going to be no longer. If it just starts to barely tap or go against what I feel should be happening, cut it and let it go crazy. And I'm going to have to take a few, if not many, little fake outs and losses that way, but I feel I'm going to save myself a lot of past charts that I've been in that do end up being a little bit squirrely, or do barely come tapping close to that 17 mark, that previous high of day, maybe slap down and reject off of that and then pull a little bit closer back to VWAP and give you that little bit of comfort, but then end up doing something squirrely either before market open or in market open. This is that specific pattern that I'm looking for. Just pretty much straight up off a news catalyst price action, straight up rejection back to the downside off of that same spike there. So, man, A+ idea on that trade, and quick in and out of just what do we got to be looking for. And I mentioned those fundamentals at the beginning of this thing, but there is no time to be pulling up dilution or pulling up. You really got to be going off of what's the percentage move, what's the float, what's the sector, what's the news catalyst. That's kind of the time frame that you got to be basing these things on, and it's not even so much so defined on the validity of that news catalyst or what the exact percentage move is. It's just a guess on that level 2 in time and sales action of, gosh, I think this thing could reverse, and this pattern has played out in the past. Let's see if it plays out again. And that's really what this pattern comes down to. It's not a predefined or well meditated trade off of that dilution and fundamentals and technical analysis. It's just a blanket, hey, I think you're going down. And sure enough, it went hard down, and I covered far sooner than the chart allowed for today. Great price action on that one. And then, yeah, I mentioned on, let's see if that's really all I want to mention. Execution-wise, yeah, I could give myself a B for how I traded, because even if I was saving it for where I was coming into this on the day, not having the awesome opportunity now of being through this chart today and now readjusting the game plan for this playbook trade, for what I was thinking, even if I did hold the full share and wait till that 10% cover to take everything off, gosh, yeah, I would not have been in for the market hours move or trading it short that way. But now we can adjust to say, okay, wow, the saving off of VERU. Okay, now we can kind of adjust to say, what is the potential for these charts that end up popping in a pre-market scan. VERU popped up at the same time, that 8:30 Eastern time, standard time frame. Lots of times in there. American Biopharma, 60 million float, like a $360 million for total flow control. They do have a little bit of a shell from July of 2020. News catalyst today was FDA was granting them the fast track designation for their breast cancer treatment thing. And yeah, I missed this one because my full attention was on that ALLO. And kind of glad that I saw ALLO versus VERU, because yeah, if I would have been in this one probably off of that rejection, but having to sit through a little bit more basing around this 5.7-ish area and then play with a little VWAP rise above attempt again. But sure enough, market hours sentiment was just full death and bleeding. Had a little bit of a VWAP curl here, short covering after 6 minutes after market open to 5 minutes of recovery after that. Oh my gosh, yeah. These are the charts that I'd love to see. This is how this pattern started in 2020 April, late April, early May, starting this little morning short strategy, morning dump as I like to call it, for these shorts to be in and out and just not be so hard focused and needing to break down technical analysis and fundamentals and dilution, all of that. You just see the top being put in. It's now failing to maintain that VWAP, that elevated price that it was running at, and now just short the crap out of it, man. Awesome little sit on those ones. So those are my real trades, ALLO, and then missed VRU. I'll go into, these are all going to be paper now, starting off with LIXT. A fourth day play. Mentioned this one and MYNZ. I think we traded these on the third day or second day for the short side as well. But on the second day on this one, the same thing of, this was just one of those charts that it's just like, this is not going to beat me. Like this type of price action for how slow it was moving, there wasn't any insane crazy volume to push these things, but it just like started going against me. And it's like the having to eat your own ass of like, it's just being handed to you like you're wrong, but it's not like just slap you in the face that you can see why you're wrong. It's just like, you're wrong. You might not think you're wrong, but you're wrong, of just playing these things short for a decent little fade off of no volume. That was a thesis, and it just didn't happen. And I got pretty squirrely with the position sizing that I was trying to trade on this one, and knowing that on the daily scale for this specific chart that, okay, I know I got this thing got to be breaking $2. I mean, we got to be looking for downside, especially after that second day. That's the type of profit action taking that I'm looking for. But it's certainly, you could call this a little bit of a wedge pattern on the daily. It doesn't necessarily look like that on the intraday perspective for how it's trading. It's just a lack of volume and dojiing everywhere. But if this thing started to spike against me, I knew I would have to look at it from a different perspective of not just wanting to cut here, which was my full bias, and my heart was telling me to do it as it was breaking above 215 there on big volume of, okay, cut it, the trade's over, but then allowing it to kind of peak and do what it wanted here and saying, okay, I think that's the top for that one. Let's get short again. This is all paper and educational experimental. That is very squirrely, and I'm kind of doubling that initial risk profile I was looking for, but I know that this is just, the signs aren't there. And if it goes against me, then it's just going to be this oddball, stupid one that I have to tip my cap to, because then it's just going to do what it wants to do. And it has this little sell-off right away during the lunch session and afternoons. It's like, okay, where does that come from? And then how does it recover off of that? I don't see any news catalyst here to make it do that specifically. It's just a wonky stock. You do you, honey boo-boo. So, yeah, just a bugger all around. C grade for idea. Really wasn't even there. Could give myself a D for that as well. And execution-wise, C and D around that range as well. Not awesome, maybe below average for how I was looking at it, but yeah, just one for the experience book there. MYNZ, same type of mentality, 4th day trade. This one also traded that 2nd day play similar to LIXT, and also kind of had that same little sentiment. It was like the same day almost on the 2nd day for MYNZ and LIXT, that it was a decent little move there on that 2nd day to the downside after that VWAP projection. And the same thing here of kind of blanketing, entering for a short trade, even on a 5-minute scale. It's just so gross to look at, this price action, but kind of getting a pretty chasey little short entry there out of the gate for the morning session, as I was trying to get short everything else too. But putting in covers as price was showing, we're kind of bottoming here and just leaving a little bit on, say, I don't know if there's going to be more out of you, but I'm just kind of trying to squeeze that towel. We're certainly still elevated after that first green day off of volume, so it still could be a nice little slow fade down. I'm going to give you time to do what you want to do, but it just kind of clinging, holding a little bit too well above VWAP, so took off the rest. And if this was a real trade, avoiding all those after-hours borrow fees, overnight borrowing fees that I would be taking on this one, when it could still definitely be trending downwards on the daily for just a slow fade, but way too boring for me to keep paying attention to it. So again, similar to LIXT, C grade for idea, C grade for execution, not awesome or baller in any regards. HGSH, 2nd day play, little Chinese real estate. I don't think I mentioned this one before. We did not trade it on that first green day. So this one is a Chinese real estate property investment company, 6 million float. They got a buttload of cash showing. So not really any reason for them to be showing or doing any dilution tricks. Starting in similar to all the other paper trades that I was doing, of kind of pre-markets, of blanketing, of getting short, just to establish a position saying, hey, I feel the sentiment for this chart is downward on the day. And I think the better trade, of course, looking back even at it, but I knew coming into this one, was to try and trade this one short overnight, of looking on, and I'll allude to some here on the close today, of I think that shorting that first green day move overnight to a downward 2nd day is a profitable trade in what the recent market has shown, of especially for HGSH on that Friday, of having a little rise into the close, just for how it's sold off there, waiting for the downside to be confirmed to be in, and even giving it time of getting a position just even around 3.3. It's a nice little move, covering at $3 or 2.9 here, pre-market, to just easy sit of whenever it pulls up or whatever it wants to do. I feel they have not been showing, of course, famous last words. They could start spiking at any point in time, but then obviously the trade pattern would be adjusted from that point. But from what they've been showing, that overnight pattern has been a profitable opportunity. So trying to get short this one, just risking the trade there. I mean, that's why I graded myself a D grade for the idea, knowing that, hey, the better trade was this one, was that overnight one, but there still could be a little bit of sell-off here. So starting in, as it was topping again at VWAP there in pre, just under $3, has a little pullback, but of course starts to break to the upside there with a little bit of volume, not crazy whatsoever, getting in another short position paper-wise, as I thought it was topping there at $3, but sure enough, it still builds around there, just kind of choppy price action, and then cover here as it's topping 305, putting in some nice volume there. Just kind of trades sideways, and similar to LIXT, just starts dumping, pulls back hard under VWAP again for really no reason, out of the blue, and now closes the day intraday red after that little move there. So just kind of all over the place. Execution grade C for how I was holding myself accountable, of kind of getting similar entry points just under that $3 mark, and then covering of like, okay, I could have such a higher risk level, as I know the sentiment for you is death, but you're just kind of doing squirrely, and I want to focus on other things. I'll catch you there. That was HGSH. Talk about MRIN now, the best one on the day. Man, A+ for idea. I wasn't really expecting this one to be an A+ type of chart pattern coming into this one pre-market. This is that 2nd day mover. Traded this one nice for an overnight play. Initially on that Thursday to Friday move last week, had whatever wanted to do, squirreliness on that Friday itself, but now coming into today too, looking weak in pre, not putting in a lot of volume, or call that a little bit of basing, but still trending under VWAP, and starting in with a little paper short position at VWAP projection right away at that morning bell. Has another, I cover immediately off of that after a nice little pull to a little 5% profit off of that entry point. Does have a VWAP pullback to VWAP rejection there. whether that is shorts covering or just buyers stepping in to try and trade a dip and red pattern off of that, but offers another little short opportunity to size in there again that it didn't take, still holding that initial position. And then covering into nice flushes here, 390-ish area, and then a nice one at 380 here for that big volume red candle, 1005 on that one. Leaving a little bit on, leaving it for that lottery ticket point of, I'm not trying to force anything more out of you, but I still believe there could be more death upon you for the daily chart that you do have with this downtrending, hard bleeding longs there. So sure enough, it ended dropping all the way to 3.7-ish range that I got that last cover there, and forces an even lower close for the afternoon session into the close on MRIN. Nice little profit opportunity, learning experience on that one. And then DWAC, last one. Again, looking for a similar short on, call it a second day play. First green day was, call it a third day play at best for this one. Of course, just that green line area. Technically, it's truly a third day play. Starting in short of, and modeling this trade specifically off of what it did back here in December, early December, off of that bigger first green day, and then just 3 successive red days after that. Just no continuation, no amount of strength to move off of that nice price action day on the first day. Playing off of that same sentiment, and as the chart was showing today, obviously a lot of other people were thinking the same thing. That ended up becoming a big short squeeze cover flush of those getting too greedy like me, who maybe they were leaving the full position on or just leaving that little bit like I was, that this ends up turning from a nice little sell-off, failing to maintain VWAP, getting nice little flushes there, covering at 51.5, tries to maintain or come closer to VWAP again, but rejects off of that. Nice little flush again to $51, that whole dollar level, and trends closer to VWAP, and then just turns on the switch and spikes right back in the face of all these shorts like me, and didn't have a stop on for those last few shares, paper-wise. But great learning experience again, to just like never turn your back, and these things can just go from euphoria and awesomeness and just, sweet profit opportunity. It's going to be a nice chart to break down at the end of the day. Turn from that into, oh my gosh, this thing is going crazy against me in the blink of an eye. Great example and reps on this one today, the Trump mover of DWAC. We'll see what it wants to do in these next few days here. I will be surprised if it does, for the little sell-off it did have in the close here. If it does have any legs to continue these next few days, it's just, again, it's going to need that pumper and sheaf to get it going to those parabolic moves again. Need Trump to start putting out something about it and get that attention back going for the craziness. Grade for the idea, C. For the little profit opportunity covers that were there. Not an awesome P&L-wise or percentage move-wise for what was there, but decent little moves. Execution-wise, C for holding myself accountable to, man, I didn't have a stop order in for those last few shares. I really didn't have a huge cover order in or a profit target area if this thing did start to trend closer to $50 or anywhere around there. But just glad I was in front of the screen around that time frame to start covering on this one. That was all the paper trades that I had. And last one that I want to mention that I wanted to get short, but I didn't get a position early because I felt it was too far down was ear. I felt it would have been too much of a chase to start in pre for how it was trending below 6.2 here, and it really didn't even offer that great of a percentage move. I mean, still 10% you could call it. 6.2 all the way down, 5.6 there range. Immediately out of the morning bell as well. Nice little sell from there. This was a third day play. Again, just trading that sentiment that I feel has been there on all of these, of the second day play that was here on ear and the charts that we've been keeping in the database for the past few weeks of, man, this is not, sometimes they do produce a nice little morning squeeze, and you can, as if you're long, you can say, oh, that was so awesome and sweet, but the overall sentiment is that death and bleeding of longs. There's just no follow-through continuation on those. Those were the charts that I want to mention, and then kind of I alluded to in another ticker earlier, but watching now for tomorrow, look for a little short move on PSTI of if we get a little rise in any price action here. It's a little bit too sideways and a little bit too blocky of trading for me to be just so confident or convicted on this style of trade, but I could see myself taking a paper trade short on this one tomorrow, looking for failure for this thing to break above that 1.9 level or even this market hours high 193-ish here, and look for it to trend closer to 175-ish, 1.7 in pre-market tomorrow to be covering into any flushes there, or just any basing or just kind of blahness in price movement for pre-market tomorrow as an easy little sit as a short for what lack of volume it is trading after hours here on PSTI. They do have a little ATM, little warrants, little shelf action going, so of course we'd love to be on the riding the camel if any of that little dilution tricks come out to play on PSTI. And RELI, both of these little watches are going to be paper and just kind of experimental, educational, not really hard convicted on any of them. But RELI, more so based on the daily of if it, trading potential short of looking for a true backside to be put in. If it does have this little failure to put in a double top or a little trending just lower than that double top area to maybe if it comes to that $9 area or 9.5-ish, that we see the little whatever step that is of the penny stocking framework of the backside on that trade for RELI. That'll be a nice little educational experimental watch, but got to be careful of it because it could, like these past two previous trading days on Friday and Thursday of it, could have a nice little morning session that just could be a fake out when that peak little trading time is for me of, oh, okay, well, volume's coming in and it's pushing these prices. Well, I'm going to cover, forcing to say, well, it's kind of done that in the past few days and especially today. Don't take that as the full sentiment for the chart. Just keep the broader term perspective in mind for that potential down move. That was all I had. I sincerely thank you guys for watching. We will catch you guys on the next one.